Oh hey, I'm just hanging out next to my null room. While you're here, I wouldn't recommend putting anything in there you don't want to lose. What's that? You want to know how to get here? Okay, fine, but to tell you that, I'll need to tell you where I began. I'll see you on the other side. Well, how was it? Today's video is a little bit different. I'll be talking about time travel. This mostly occurs in Halo 3, ODST, and Reach, and it sounds complex, but it's a lot more simple than it seems. Throughout Halo and most other video games, levels are too complex to render all at once. So the solution is to load only the areas where the player currently is, and the ones around them so it's seamless to walk around. In Halo specifically, these are called BSPs, after the file name. Knowing this, time travel is basically traveling through BSPs in the way the designers did not intend. If the normal route is ABC, then the time travel route will be something like ACB. Pretty much every time this involves going out of bounds, and so we will be learning some cool out of bounds methods as well. Let's start with the first time travel glitch ever discovered, which takes place on the Covenant in Halo 3. At mission start, play until you reach the first tower and make sure to keep a ghost intact. Then once you clear the enemies outside of the tower, notably the shade turret so that it leaves this pad on the ground, get in the ghost. You can use the shade turret's pad to boost on top of the section of the tower. Then walk up it and jump up here and here. Then you can jump off of this part, and underneath you is the other side of an elastic barrier that normally keeps the player from entering the area that you're in. Then climb up this mountain, and normally you'd fall down here to perform this, but that has the risk of killing you, so it's easier to just hit this wall and you will load the area with the 2 scarabs, although there will be no enemies. It's a pretty cool view from a place you wouldn't normally see, but unfortunately there is a death barrier that surrounds most of the area. A pretty easy, simple time travel glitch is on the Ark. You will need acrophobia to do this. Play for mission start, and once you destroy the scarab, keep playing until this cutscene plays. Once you get control, if you head over here, there is a loading zone in this corner of this area. You have to fly into it pretty fast, otherwise you will instantly die. Once you fly into this area, it will load the scarab fight area, but without most of the death barriers. You can fly around most of the out of bounds areas, and I also found this phantom here. Not too much else is possible here, unfortunately, but it's still pretty cool. The most notable Halo Reach time travel glitch occurs on the Pillar of Autumn. Play until you get into the mongoose, and drive into the area with the scarabs. Your goal here is to ramp off of these rocks into the second scarab's leg, although they have some weird hitboxes, and if you get it right, you will launch backward and into the air. However, there is quite the timing, and if you get it wrong, you will most likely die. I'd recommend slowing down a bit around here to let the scarab start walking, but preserving enough momentum to fly into it. This method is fairly consistent. Once you get launched, this will keep that weird hitbox on the scarab, and if you drive to about this area, the step after the scarab launches this truck a bit will send you out of bounds. This part is extremely luck-based, but if you get out of your mongoose and crouch about here, waiting for the scarab to walk over you, you are officially out of bounds. There are a lot of death timers here, so if you run to where this V is, you will be out of bounds without the timer. There isn't a crazy amount out here to explore, but you can play through the rest of the level without any enemies, except you can't finish the level. To get past this door, you do need to get a forklift and get out of it so that you get through this door, just like you do in Nightfall. But if you're solo, this is where it ends. Also, back on this ridge where the Carter cutscene plays, there are a couple of grunts up here. Walking into this corner loads the next area's hitboxes, but not the graphics, and also this waterfall for some reason. Doing this allows you to get on top of this skybox, and you can walk pretty much anywhere in the level. In theater mode, you can get some pretty crazy shots with this. Just don't fall back in bounds and get a checkpoint like I did. Although time travel is not without its consequences. One of the many consequences is deloading. Deloading is pretty self-explanatory, but the problem here lies in that if the player hits a loading area wrong, they can deload themselves, and this happens. While deloaded, you can melee once. Scoping in doesn't do anything, and throwing a grenade makes it so you can't melee or scope in anymore. There are a lot of weird quirks to this. A consistent deload to try is one on Halo ODST's NMPD HQ. That was a lot of fucking letters. It does require a friend and some timings. Quick shout out to my friend Sly for helping me record this, and another one later on. The deload occurs in this first area, and you want the person who is going to get deloaded to get in this shade turret. The other person should keep playing. In this level, once you pass this area, it will teleport the other player to you. If you time crossing this area with the other person getting out of the shade turret, they will deload. From here you can view the skybox and not too much else. Okay, for this next section we're gonna have to go back a bit. In my very first Halo video, when I didn't know how to mix audio at all, I made the bold claim that the composer is probably the most broken mission in Halo. To be honest, it's pretty far up there, so good job past me. Unfortunately, I realized that the most broken mission is actually the Covenant, with 2 betrayals just behind because you can no-clip. The Covenant is extremely broken, and today I'm going to tear this mission apart. To start, because there is so much going on with this, I'm going to tell you about all of the different loading zones that we will be using. This will make the next part of stringing them together in different ways to produce different results much easier to understand. There is, of course, the first one we talked about earlier that allows the player to go from the first tower to the final scarab area, along with some weird death planes. The next area is just behind where the secret marine was in my Easter egg video. It's somewhere around here, but make sure to go this way because if you don't, you risk getting deloaded. This loading zone allows you to go from the final scarab area to the second and third towers. The next one is the reverse of this. If you go behind the third tower, there are a few loading zones here, and if you go all the way down and forward, you will load the final scarab area. If you go all the way down and back under the tower, you will load inside of the tower, but only the bottom floor, and the player will deload. If you fly into the back of the tower using acrophobia or a hornet, you will load the scarab area, but from the point of view of inside the final room in the tower. This one and the other one that loads the scarab area are actually different areas because one has the tower area loaded and you can actually switch from the one that doesn't have it loaded to the one that does by walking around here. One of my favorites is this loading zone right here. It's on this side of this tower and allows you to load inside of the final tower area a lot earlier. If you fly here in a hornet, you will deload, but I'll mention how to load this area without deloading a little later on. The next one is if you fly around here, it will load the first tower area from the second and third tower area. The last one is really weird, and I found it by complete accident. But if you're trying any of these glitches and you find that the third tower has an invisible wall here, if you walk over this ridge and past this little bump, it will deload the invisible wall. It won't even have the loading done from the other zones, and also if you're carrying this Marine's rocket launcher, it will deload that too. I genuinely don't understand why this happens, and it doesn't happen with any of the other weapons. I got nothing. Anyways, let's start combining these loading zones to truly fuck the level up. The first one allows you to get into the top of the third tower, and this is one that is very important to learn. It used to require 2 players, but I'll talk about that. Basically, from Rally Point Charlie, if you quickly grab this hornet after a quick mongoose ride, you can fly over here and under this bridge. If you go down as far as possible and make sure you're as under this as you can be, you can back up and you will go outside of the skybox, allowing you to fly over to where the secret marine is. There is a weird invisible wall here, but you can get under it. Then fly to this area where you load the second and third towers. If you have 2 people, get one at least in the left seat on the Hornet. Then fly into the third tower and go to the back side of it. If you fly into it at full speed in this section, the player riding the seat will fly into the tower and through the glass wall. You can then explore this area, and if you have acrophobia enabled, you can go down the tower and look at how broken everything is. I would go through specifics, but I want you guys to explore this area too, and there's a lot more in this video. If you go into this bottom panel instead of the top one, you can actually explore this area underneath, which is pretty cool, but there isn't really anything inside of it. As I said earlier, technically you don't need 2 players for this, both with and without acrophobia. With a precise timing, you can get out of the Hornet and boost yourself inside of the tower. You can also just fly into it using acrophobia, but the Hornet one is much cooler. We can also use a certain path to force some weird towers to spawn. They're known as the Da Vinci Code Towers. These names are like some 2010 creepypasta shit, but they're very funny. If you start from the beginning of the mission, and do the first time travel glitch again by climbing the tower, jumping here and climbing this ridge, and walking against this wall, you can go to the third tower. And against this side of the tower, there is a loading zone that, if done right, will spawn these Da Vinci towers. You can walk over here without fear of the other loading zones, so don't worry. They have this texture that is used by the Guardians on the maps Sand Trap and Sandbox, and a few other things. Some more weird interactions happen when you load the last hallway area without loading the cutscene beforehand. You will need 2 people for this, and one will become deloaded during this. Start at Rally Point Charlie and drive to the Hornets. You want the player who's going to get deloaded to drive the Hornet. The other player can ride the side. Then fly all the way over the entire arena and fly down to this area and go under here to go underneath the skybox like I mentioned earlier. If you drop the player who will go into the final area on the 5th of these lines, then fly straight down from this line, the Hornet player will deload, but the other player will fall into the final area. You can do some funny things here, like move these holograms so that the Prophet of Truth makes out with himself. Walk to the last area and go to the start where there are endless floods spawning, and because we never hit the trigger to make the flood friendly, they will fight the player in this area. It also spawns enemies as per normal if you go to the start of this room. The point of view from the deloaded player though is less than appealing. My dog is fucking farting, dude, holy shit. Now, while messing around during the recording of this video, I accidentally somehow deleted this entire wall. You might be thinking, oh, it's probably just hidden or invisible, but no, there is no more collision on it. You can just walk out. From what I could gather, this seems like it's completely new, but I could be wrong. Basically, you want to start from Rally Point Bravo with acrophobia enabled. Play until you go into the tower, go inside the tower here, and leave. Then fly up here, and go over this hill that I mentioned earlier. Then go back and forth by going here to load the Scarab area, and back using this area behind the secret marine. This is so that you can go back to the second and first towers. Still with me? Fly to the starting area to load the first tower, then go back to the Scarab area with the first time travel I mentioned next to the first tower. Then fly over to the third tower and fly around here to where it loads the indoor area, and this wall will be completely gone. There are also some more consequences, like the elevator being gone, but half of the collision being there. I don't know, it's weird. If you go down the elevator shaft, hit the activate where the button would be, kill these brutes and drones, and fly back to the top, these enemies will spawn, and they will not be able to move. The terminal will also be gone, and so will these explosives. I'd recommend exploring this one, it's weird to see some of the side effects. Now to cap this off, let's figure out how to get into the certified null room. First, start at Rally Point Charlie, then play until you get in the Hornet, and fly that down and out of bounds like we did for the final area skip. But this time, fly up all the way and go slightly down so that you still fly at full speed, and go all the way to the secret marine loading zone. If you hit the loading zone just right, you will be in the second tower area with the Hornet. Then fly into the first tower loading, and then fly to the first tower. There will be some invisible barriers, and flying here will delete your Hornet for some reason, so go around that area. Then fly all the way back to the third tower by going over these invisible barriers, and fly into the back side of the third tower to load the Scarab area. Your Hornet will be deleted, but you will not need it anymore. Then walk along this ridge, and fall here to land back in bounds. If you walk back down this path, you will reach the Null Room. That was a fun journey. I'd like to quickly thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. Anyways, have fun in the Null Room.